Hey, what's up, man? G fan. You know what? That's not. They're not wrong. I mean, this and Scary Monsters have been running for about probably more than 30 years, right? And this is a good one to start on with. The unfortunately, and I didn't find out about this until I saw this cover. Okay, it's amazing what doesn't make the news. Akira Takarada passed away in March, and I only found out about this when I saw this on the shelf. Okay, there's definitely something. Even though I don't watch the news, I still find out about things. So how this got through, I don't know. And it's kind of like, to me, okay, when Christopher Lee passed away, yeah, there were horror actors after him, but essentially an era had ended with his death. And in the case of Akira Takarada, like, you could say the same thing. He was the last guy, the last person still alive from the early Toho, films, Kaiju and otherwise. And it's definitely the ending of an era here. So, the magazine itself, it's a fanzine. Most of the content, like Scary Monsters, is fan made, but it's. I mean, so many years they've been doing this. It's very professional, very diverse, different opinions. You'll have 5 or 6 different opinions, politically or otherwise, or on films or their meanings in this, and the editor allows a free reign of these ideas, which is nice, right? um, and it's interesting. Akira, I didn't know that Akira Takarada. He actually grew up in Manchuria. He's one of the Japanese, that had lived there, and of course, when the Soviets, threw him out. He actually got shot by a Soviet soldier as a kid. Wow, I didn't know that about him, but go through here. This is an example of it. But and this guy, shout out to John LeMay. This guy, he has a book on unmade kaiju films, which is actually as interesting as any book would be about actual films. But I'm gonna go over that probably in October. So more on him later. And forget they'll cover Shin Godzilla. This was a great film. This was a realistic film, of course. The backdrop of Fukushima, all these things. Although I see this here, some Western critics and G fans express fear and suspicion of supposed World War II Japanese nationalism in the film. The hell are you afraid of, man? Come on, are you nuts? If anything in the film, it's funny. The Americans in this film, the Japanese view of the Americans is a very inaccurate view. They still think they're a bunch of wasps ruling the place. And in terms of the film, the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans pretty much are clear that they're gonna probably try to nuke Japan unless they figure out how to settle this new Godzilla problem here. And of course, this Godzilla was terrifying. It should be approached in the same manner as such great historical dramas as Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. This is a much better movie, Shin Godzilla. However, like I said, and this Godzilla, man, this Godzilla is probably the scariest Godzilla since the first movie from 1954, man. It doesn't even seem like he's alive, this Godzilla, until he starts, blasting the city. Yeah. But then we go to classic Monster Zero. Why Monster Zero is good? Remember, the one before this, you actually had Mothra, so you had more monsters in this, but this was a better film. And the action scenes were really good, but of course the actors, the human element. Nick Adams, I told you, yeah, Nick Adams, the tough guy from Pennsylvania, right? And of course the counterpoint, the very feminine, beautiful Kumi Mizuno. And I like what this guy said here. They have a chemistry, believe it or not. These two people from disparate worlds, in the movie and in real life, yeah, they have a chemistry that in between them. It's really is cool. So I'm gonna go over stuff that's relevant. You got younger people reading these, watching these movies now with obviously different viewpoints than a Gen X person like I would have. So, and this is an example, right? The critique. It's very fashionable to critique the Godzilla King of the Monsters, the American version. Okay, absent was the contrived happy ending. The end of the film when Steve says the world could wake up and live again. Right? in stark contrast to the sadness of the mourners on the boat. I think the American dub is brilliant, and the scenes with Steve Martin are really well done. It wasn't happy at the end. Steve Martin was very sober about it. He had just, he was acknowledged the sacrifice of this great man, right? And this thing here too. I showed this scene in the video I have. Okay, the dialogue of the mother, of the clutching her three children and telling them they would join their father was not dubbed into English. I mean, there wasn't really any point to it. The American viewer probably figures this woman is, speaking her last words to her doomed, children and her. Okay, I had mentioned the war element of it, the firebombing of Tokyo. Okay, the atomic bombing, of course, always is mentioned, but the firebombing of Tokyo, again, I'll bring it up, the single largest killing event in the history of the world. But whatever, it's the younger people. What are you gonna do? These millennials. And I like this here, the yokai, right? And what is it? Obakimono, right? These are the indigenous, the monsters of Japanese legend and folklore. Always like this, right? I saw two of these yokai monster wars from Dai, right? You're familiar with some of these, right? You got the kappa, right? They live in the water. You gotta hit them on the top of their head. And these tengus, right? They're like bird, kind of like people, And this thing is apparently, it was the most terrifying monster for men in the ocean, the umibozu, and they don't even really know what it is. Okay, this is where now you get the Japanese. You're looking at tradition right here. You're looking at people that fear and respect a universe, where mystical forces, transcendent forces, are part of your life. Right, the mysteries are there. Embodying metaphors, whatever you want to call it, but it's always cool to see the folklore and the creatures of these different cultures from all over the world, right? And this one was really deeply feared by the Japanese. It was a monster that destroyed multiple ships at once. Interesting, right? Of course, you have the Yuki Ono, right? Kwaidan. I'm gonna go over Kwaidan in October. The snow demon, vampire woman, right? Kwaidan, right done. And you got this is cool, right? And half human. You have like the abominable snowman, right? Of course, there's a conjecture that these hairy, giant, fearsome humans were the Ainu in the north that the Japanese were running into. Back in like the year 300 BC, right, when they were coming over from Korea, the peninsula. So, and of course, the Ainu have, obviously a lot of these creatures are also known by the Ainu, right? So you wonder, was there something to these legends here? But it was interesting. This was a nice article, informative article, right? There's always a lot of information. It's very densely filled with information. And we'll go through this. Listen, I love cheesy movies. I love even crazy miniature work that doesn't look. This was too much. I can honestly say I could not even get into, and that's saying a lot, man. So it's a shame. And there he is. So Akira Takarada, rest in peace. 6 feet tall, man. That was interesting. I circled some of the things. Very amiable guy, right? I like to talk about Nick Adams, right? Nick was a good guy. They really got along. There's a film they did where it's an action film where they're both, they're fighting and shooting enemies and stuff like that. I don't know what that was. I don't think it was ever dubbed into English, but I really want to see that. He was talking about Nick, very respectful. Yeah, it was. They really got along. He's not just, the Japanese are not very effusive, but about him, he really seemed to strike a good chord with them. And he's referring here to the rebel, Johnny Yuma the rebel, right? You can't make that show anymore. I can still see his pointed nose and blonde hair. Oh, and so just going through here as an example, look at this, man. 100 shot, 100 kill. What a cool name for a movie. Yeah, look at that. like a violent action comedy apparently. So I like this here. In general, Japanese people never express their emotions. This is the opposite with American. I also like where he goes over, and it brings up some uncomfortable things maybe to Americans, but not to me. Right? Japanese films were influenced by French cinema. Right? Obviously, there's an affinity there. In Japan, we brought a lot of French culture, especially because France has a long history like Japan. America is quite young, only hundreds of years old. Ha! Take that, America. And I like this too. Do you like being in Europe? I've been to Spain, to France. It's the first time I've come to Germany. I don't know the United Kingdom yet. I moved about this visit in Germany because our cultures are close. Our two people like each other. It's also the case between Japan and France. Those countries share a long and rich history. For the U.S., you can go back 400 years, but not beyond. Germany, France, and Japan represent thousands of years of history. That's right. Yeah, it's interesting. With such history and cultures, good relationships are easier to build. Interesting. He's right. Sorry. There's pictures of him. Yeah, so, and rounding it out here, because I'm running out of time, cool photos of him, as a young dude. Like I said, he was a tall guy, 6 feet tall. Really cool. Really cool. Rest in peace, man. This was interesting. Here, for example, look, Gaian environmentalism and Kaiju cinema. Okay, there's a voice for everyone here. This is interesting too. This was the Dai film where they were gonna make giant rats, and a bunch of rats, and it didn't work out because the rats were causing problems. Right, the rats were infested with mites and ticks. There was a real problem. Dai shut this film down. And they decided, let's go with this other idea with we'll do something with this, I don't know, this giant turtle that flies through the air. So it's interesting. I guess that was the creature they envisioned, but, it never went anywhere. And I just, more interesting things here. Latitude Zero, great movie. And Festival Hill, Lupin the Third, Mysterious. Some baseball anime. So anyway, this is G-Fan. It's a lot of fun. Oh, wait, I'm not done. An appreciation. The American Godzilla is great. Listen, the original is great, of course. But the scenes with Steve Martin, and it's great, Yeah, racism. What are you talking about? You tripping. Nah, I don't think he's saying that. They mentioned that the kid in Godzilla, they mentioned that he's the byproduct of the hydrogen bomb. Who the hell has the hydrogen bomb at this point? I don't think the Soviets had it yet. So they only talk about one country. Let's see. So going through here. Yeah, it was great. I think this was a really good adaptation, right? Several scenes the civilians got, but the shot most emblematic, right? The doomed mother and her children. That scene is, especially if you know about the wars, and not just in Japan, but in Germany too. What people were going through, and in the Soviet Union, to be fair. We'll be with Daddy soon, right? A reference to the Pacific War dead. Yeah, that was a woman. That was like the thousands that were going to be burned to death that the night in March. Right. Right. That too is like dispassionately indifference to the Japanese. Who is this guy? He's stunned and shocked about this attack that happens on Japan. I don't know where the guy's coming from. So perhaps there's some reverse racism. Oh, remember that? Reverse racism? Remember that term? Right. And here we go. Rounding this out. Perhaps most important for the soundtrack, the superb original score by Akira Ifukube remains essentially undisturbed. Right. Even resequence, the eerie and deeply pensive music adds an essential frightening dimension by enhancing the tension. Man, dude. Scary, dark music with the soundtrack. It's amazing, right? And just to round this out, another line in particular spoken by Ogata de Sarazawa and unique to the American version, right? Remember this? And this can apply to other things in life. Then you have a responsibility no man has ever faced. You have your fear, which may become reality. And you have Godzilla, which is reality. That, you know what? That's, That was good. That's a great line, man. That's up there with any line in any movie. So, and that's G Fat. Good job, guys. Rest in peace, Akira.